I became known as the Century Man. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't have any idea what Century Man meant. And
Right.
When you add up the days of suspension time that I've taken on the department, it totaled over 100 years. Even prior to maybe even getting hired on the department, I was doing a lot of things dangerously when it came to alcohol that could have even prevented me from having the career that I did, right?
Right. Welcome back to the AA Guy Police Podcast here with your host, Marlon Marrache. Of course, by now, we're a year and a half in. Every guest is special. We know that. But before we bring in Gustavo, shout out to a very special day. Feliz 28 a todos mis peruanos. If you're wondering why I'm wearing my jersey, it's Independence Day for my beloved Peru. You know you will always be in my heart forever. Siempre estarás en mi sangre. Y tú eres mi tierra. With that being said, okay, so let me get this straight. First of all, you know no one's going to know what Mervin's is. You do know that, right?
Well, maybe some will.
Only people our age.
Yeah, our age and then above. Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
And the question I have for you, and thank you for coming and showing up, is you worked at Mervin's in Glendale Galleria. I suppose a couple of things. One, did that job kind of prepare you to take it to the next level and become a cop? What do you think?
I don't think that it did in law enforcement, but I had the luck to have a brother that was already on LAPD, was hired in 87.
Okay.
I worked for Mervin's from 89 to about 94, like just before I got hired by LAPD in October of 94. So my example of law enforcement in LAPD, right, the love for LAPD was through my brother, a lot of his friends that he had made that I got to know. Right. And then taking some administration of justice courses at Los Angeles City College.
Nice.
At his suggestion, after my dream was to be an architect, right? Maybe practice the technical illustration stuff that I did in high school, taking it to a different level with architecture. Took some courses at LACC, and we had a really good professor who kind of told the entire class, hey, it's a tough business to break into.
Okay.
Maybe a secondary, since you're at JC, maybe a secondary, career choice would be a good option. I talked to my brother John about it. I know he recalls the story, and he actually suggested the administrative and justice courses at LACC because some active and retired members of LAPD were actually part of the professors that were teaching that.
The cadre.
The cadre. So
yeah.
Once I started taking classes, man, with that, it became my passion to become a LAPD. I really wanted to do what my big brother was doing, and it was really tough, though, because there was a hiring freeze. I don't know if you remember in the early 90s. So, I mean, I went through the cycle once I hit 21 at the age in 91. Several times. I had to take the test over several times.
It's tough,
and I
man.
finally got picked up. Yeah.
Good for you, man. So, you said high school. You know, went to Little High School.
Yes.
You were a baller, a little baseball player.
Yeah, a little baseball, my blood. But baseball and football, but baseball is my passion.
John Marshall?
John Marshall High School here in Los Feliz, city of LA.
Question I have for you. Your best game at John Marshall High School?
Well, best game, I know we talked about it a little bit before to prep me, but it wasn't like I wasn't that guy that was tearing up the city ranks and going to be going to a D1 college, but so it wasn't a personal thing. It was more of a team thing, and I know we had a rivalry with Franklin High School here in Highland Park in the old Northern League, as people that might know that are viewing this or maybe not.
Shout out to Franklin High School.
My junior and senior years, I made the varsity squad. So each time we played some very, really like nail-biting games at Franklin High School and our high school as well to be able to win the Northern League, as we call it. So I think our games against Franklin High School and the victories to propel us to the Northern League championship and into the city playoffs was probably my highlight.
Okay.
Really. Yeah.
No walk-off? You didn't get a walk-off?
No, man, that wasn't me, man. Look at me, man. I'm still, I'm a runner, not a lifter. My brothers are the big weightlifters in the family, but that's okay. That's okay, yeah.
Awesome. So you're a 95 guy. 95 is when you came on?
10B 94. So there was
10B 94.
Yeah, there was 2 academy classes in October, and the 5th Monday, as they call it, right? The next class to start was Halloween Monday. So my anniversary date was Halloween every time after I started in 94. Yeah.
All right, man. Well, you know what? This is, well, let me ask you this, because, we have a lot of friends in common, and I appreciate you coming down to sharing a really, really heartfelt story. You saw this IA podcast. I know in the beginning I called the Internal Affairs a police podcast. Just out of curiosity, what were your thoughts of someone having a podcast with internal affairs matters related to, to put on a platform? What do you think?
Yeah, listening to some of your episodes specifically, or what I thought before I even got into watching them?
No, just you saw internal affairs,
Yeah.
and you probably don't listen to many podcasts.
No, not a podcast
just
guy.
Curious to know, what did you think about IA in general?
Yeah, in general, I thought, wow, this is going to be maybe peeling back, the
curtains.
the curtains on some of the nefarious stuff that goes on, and really listening to some of the harrowing stories, I guess, that the officers get involved in, and obviously there's some successes depending on what side of the street you're on, right?
Yeah.
Whether you're on the officer side or on the IA side, and it's kind of weird to say it that way because when you talk about IA, it's all agency, right? So we're all officers, but victories and defeats. I certainly have my own personal opinions, because I've been through it's funny that I'm a Halloween guy because I have a spooky story, I think, career. I made it to the end, the finish line, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But, man, I went through some personal trials and tribulations.
And you know what? And it's all about growth.
Yeah.
You can agree with that. It's all about learning, and we're going to get into that. But just right from the get-go, you and I kind of talk about this before we started recording. 10B94, look, when you were in the academy, your impression of internal affairs in 1994 compared to today, right? Has that impression changed? And if so, how?
Yeah, it has. I think as a young officer, like many others, I don't want to, say that my story's everybody else's, but I thought, it was us against them mentality, basically. That I'm not sure how that got set in me, certainly. I mean, again, I got a spooky story, which we'll get into, but even before the spookiness started, it was like a us against them mentality. Yeah. Movies, I don't even think he was an example for my brother, right? Because I don't even think he ever took one suspension day in his career, and if he did, it might have been because of a traffic accident,
right.
Nothing like anything else other than that. Today, however, to answer your question, man, being almost 31 years total in the department and having worked specific units that we'll get into, I think, when we get further into the podcast. I certainly have a different perspective now. I understand that, IA is a necessity. It's not really an us against them. There's personal opinions, based on, things that have happened to people
right.
that they believe are wrong or incorrect. But ultimately, I think it's a necessity on the department, right?
Yeah. I feel as though when I do ask that question, we're somewhat misunderstood, right?
Yeah. You are.
I kind of feel it's misrepresented.
Yeah.
Only because, like you said, it's us versus them. Me too. I mean, no one can. Did anybody come in the academy and say, "Hey, here we are. This is IA. This is what we do"?
No IA course. No one block.
No presentation. No
IA.
no learning domain that said anything about IA. One, two.
Yeah.
My thinking is our FTOs.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Hey, those guys are in suits, and mind you, we're a big agency.
Yeah.
So it's not like they're in the station.
Right.
And there comes the suits.
Right.
Don't talk to them.
Exactly.
Those guys are hated.
Yeah.
They're the dark side. And I asked that because it is July of 2025.
Yeah.
And we still have that negative stigma attached to this internal affairs function.
Yeah.
And I'd like to ask all my guests is that what can we do to change that stigma? What do you think? Well,
I mean, man, if we can be true to the mandate, right? That we're supposed to be fair, honest, unbiased in all our investigations, whether we're out performing a duty, on the streets, and or whether we're doing administrative functions, specifically internal affairs. Maybe that'll help reduce the stigma, the negative stigma, right. the us against them. Unfortunately, as human beings, and man, we're human beings on LAPD, right? We certainly have type A personalities, and what we ended up doing is we end up, in my opinion, right? This is Gus's opinion. We end up sharing a lot of stories, and it's usually the negative ones, either things that we have happened to us specifically, and/or things that we've heard have happened to others, and we tell a room or a group of folks. Before you know it, that story grows legs, and it creates that environment of more of that us versus them. What? I can't believe it, and certainly. It's crazy, man. I've always lived, and not always, but, I started to live by the mantra of there's three sides to every story, right? Yeah. There's their side, there's my side, and somewhere in the middle is probably what's really going on. Right. My point with that is that, each side is going to give a version of events that maybe will help them, right? Will
Correct.
be positive towards them, not negative, because we're human beings. Somewhere in the middle, we're going to be able to massage through all that and maybe find exactly what's going on. But has my mentality of, man, hey, don't talk to those guys in the suits, and having a completely closed-minded idea of who those guys are. Has it changed? Absolutely. And it's specifically because guys like you, Marlon, I know you worked internal affairs, and I know you to the core. I know the type of person that you are, and other people on the department that have taken tours through internal affairs. Now, the flip side to that is I've also know some guys and gals that maybe, wow, okay, that person's working internal affairs. How did that happen, right?
Yes.
And that's only human beings a version of it. I'm not trying to be mean or antagonizing by it, but it's the truth, right? So, yeah.
To that point, there is a lot of truth to that. I can tell you from teaching up and down the state of California, internal affairs, and just from the podcast, people calling me and guests, that have appeared before you. Yes, there is that one, like, why is he working internal affairs? 1, 2, some people even do it. You know what? I really don't care about investigating him or her, because I just want to get that feather in the cap and move on and promote to the next level. So yes, I believe that there's different intentions for, and it sucks. I say that because it's a very vital function.
Yeah.
It's a
absolutely. Yeah.
Right. I mean, this is like your career kind of depends on it.
Right.
Yeah.
And
so the next question I want to ask you, Gustavo, is room full of sergeants. Here we are. They believe everything, right? So if you're in a room full of sergeants today, right now, I gave you the podium, and those sergeants are getting ready to begin their internal affairs assignment, their investigative assignment. What's the one thing you want them to know about that job?
Man, probably the biggest thing is do your best, right? And it's do your best because, man, we're human beings, right? But do your best to be objective. And, that means, in the way that I understand it, fact finder, right? The truth, things that are going to lead to something to be factual. Not subjective, meaning don't add emotion to it. Don't add your personal opinion or bias. But I preface that with do your best. That's what I would tell the room, because we're human beings, man. And I think that ultimately will, in the end, right, play itself out. I know there's other mechanisms or levels of review, as we call it, right? After an investigator gets done with any type of investigation, specifically an internal affairs investigation, maybe they should be more objective as well, and not subjective. So.
I take it you're speaking from experience, meaning that not everybody is objective.
Correct.
What do you think?
Correct. Yeah, I know that for a fact. And it's really not about when I get into my personal story, we're going to talk about something that was really, man, something that needed to happen to me. And I don't have any, I don't harbor any negativity towards the department. More than anything, I have a lot of gratitude and thanks, because when we get into it, I think the audience will understand the things that I went through on a personal level, that, I had to go through some things to get a change in myself, right? There's nothing that the department brought on.
Well, you know what? If being that, because we have a lot to talk about when it comes to that, let's go, man. So I do know that you had 2 alcohol-related issues that ended up at an LAPD they call the border rights hearing, which is the version of an arbitration or a Skelly hearing for other departments. And you were facing some serious allegations and maybe even termination. Kind of tell us how this journey of yours began with these alcohol-related issues to the point where it really affected your career.
Okay. And here's the curveball on the outside corner when you're waiting for a fastball, Marlon. I actually have had 3 alcohol-related beefs in my career. Wow. And the first one was in '97. I had just made probation, and I was a young P2 officer. I was involved in an alcohol-related incident at an establishment, like a restaurant that turned into like a nightclub type atmosphere. I ended up taking a 22-day suspension for that, for conduct unbecoming. Long story short, that was early on in my career, right?
Okay.
So the 2 incidents that I think that you're talking about is 2005 September and April of '07. I also told you I was going to give you another little tidbit. I became known as the Century Man. Unbeknownst to me, I didn't have any idea what Century Man meant. And when you add up the days of suspension time that I've taken on the department, it totaled over 100 years. And I was told by somebody when I was speaking, way after I got, you know, better and well and didn't have the personal issues that I had, at a roll call that I was doing to try to help other people understand the problems that I was going through and maybe help others, you know, not go through the same issues. They came up and spoke to me and said, "Hey, you're the guy that they call the Century Man." I didn't realize that. And I'm like, "What?" And I had no idea what they were talking about. And then I added 65, 22, and 22. And I'm trying to do my city math here, but that's 109 days, Marlon. So when you think about that, he told me there's never been anybody that's had that amount of days, and those triple-related, alcohol-related incidents that has, at that point, I'm not sure about now, had survived, you know, those types of issues and still remained a member of the department. Active, yeah. So
when you, well, that's good to know. So you're the Century Man.
I'm the Century Man, man.
To this very day.
Yes.
Let me begin as you're going to tell me this journey. You said early in your career, you took a 22-day suspension hit. I take it well-deserved, and you moved on. Right?
It was, you know, it was well-deserved getting a suspension. It's curious that you ask it that way because a lot of people that knew about that incident, it was not involving a motor vehicle at all. It was at an establishment where the police had to arrive. It was our agency, LAPD. And a lot of people said, man, 22 days is way too much for that. You should take a 15 or 10 days. You should probably try to go to a board for just penalty, right?
Correct.
And back in the day, there was a different chief, you know, that was at LAPD. And you have up until the 11th hour to be able to say, hey, we're going to move forward with the board or not. And I had got it all ready to go. We're ready and prepared to fight the 22-day as a not justified, right? The amount of days I had, you know, I was a very young officer. Why do you go white to 22? Which, you know, that's the most that you can give at the divisional level before you say something should go to a board of rights for possible termination, right? And then we were finding out as we got closer to my board for the penalty at the time that people going in with 5 days were coming out with 10. People with 10 were coming out with 15. 15 were going to board of rights, and we said, "You sure you still want to do this?" And I said, "I'll take the 22-day suspension." Now, all that to say, Marlon, now, you know, in retrospect, and the things that you're going to hear about 05 and 07 and things that I've learned about myself and where I'm at now in life, it was an early warning sign, man, of things that were to come when it came to alcohol and me and my life. And I don't want to say it was deserved now, but I don't have so many qualms about it anymore. Like then I certainly did, because a lot of people were, even my brothers and his friends, were giving me a lot of advice about how unfair that was. But ultimately,
and when I say, you know, in terms of fairness, you're right. Penalty. You know, how do you balance out penalty with a 2-3 year police officer who was involved in this off-duty incident for alcohol, and we're just going to slam him for 22,
right?
Had you would have brought that to my attention when I worked officer rep section, I probably would have said, yeah, it's a little too harsh. Maybe we should go down to 5, maybe 10 days. And, you know, what, you know, the rest is what they say is history.
Yeah.
But my thinking is from 1997, then came the 2 other incidents later on in your career. Is that correct?
Yeah. What ended up happening was, you know, I worked Pacific Division, became a gang officer for almost 6 years, from 97 to 2003. In August of 03, I promoted to sergeant the first time. So here's a little preview of what's about to come. The first time, I like to say that, the first time I made sergeant. So a little under 10 years, if you do the math, right, on the department. And here I am, a sergeant, very happy and proud of that. My big brother, who I always call my big brother and my mentor on the department, don't want to get emotional about that because I have a lot of emotion behind, you know, how all the support he showed me throughout all the difficulties I went through. He hadn't. My point with that is he hadn't promoted to sergeant because that wasn't what he wanted to do at the time. He eventually did, but here I am, a young sergeant on the department. I got wheeled over to Southwest Division where I did my probationary time back in 96, 97, right, when I got out of the academy.
Okay.
So I'm back at Southwest as a young sergeant. And I stayed there for 2 years. The wheel at Southwest Division, as maybe people that are watching this know, Southwest Division is very slow as a sergeant. You usually leave after a year, and they said, man, you plan to stick around for about 2 years. I'm like, what? There's no way I'm staying here for 2 years.
You don't want to stay at Southwest for 2 years?
Well, they were right. They were right, man. It was 2 years, and all the people ahead of me were leaving, like when they were supposed to at 2 years. And in August of '05, so just exactly 2 years later, I get wheeled to jail division. It was still jail division at the time.
Yeah.
Now it's called custody service division at LAPD. And probably in a weird nutshell, it was probably the best thing that ever happened to me to go to a smaller nucleus of a division. At the time, there was only sergeants and above at the old glass house at the old Parker Center.
Yep.
Because there wasn't a need to have officers intermingled with the custody service officers because there wasn't a shortage of custody service officers. And that's shortly right after, like September of '05 is when I had my first major, or my second major alcohol-related incident.
Okay.
Or, not to get too much into detail on that, I hit a parked car late at night while under the influence of alcohol.
Okay.
I made it home safely, but the department, it was in the city of Los Angeles because I live in the city of Los Angeles in Echo Park by Dodger Stadium. It happened not very far from Silver Lake, where the home we all grew up in as a family in Silver Lake, the home that we still have, mom and dad's home. They're both deceased, but we still have the home. And it was a blackout experience for me, meaning I lost memory of it because of my alcohol intake.
Right. Your consumption.
Yeah, and I had like varying levels of recollection, so then it turned into like a brownout. And that's, now I all know, I don't want to get too crazy educational here on this, but I know through my experience and education that I've had in the whole subject matter of alcoholism or alcohol intake, that I was like reducing BAC content right in my bloodstream. So I made it home, but Central Traffic Division did a really good job of finding where I drove home after the accident. And
shout out to CTD, man.
Yeah, shout out to
job.
CTD. You know what?
Man.
Ultimately, CTD probably set the course of my life. I'm a true believer in that. God was working for me way before I realized my God was working for me.
Yeah.
Even in those small little moments, because my point with that, Marlon, is that had I got away with that, or that would have been an incident that I would have, man, imagine that. I'm a sergeant of police. I'm driving away from a traffic accident. What the hell am I thinking, right? But, fight or flight, fear. I'm here to tell you, I don't want to sound like a Teflon person, but, a guy that has a type A personality that wants everything to be perfect, that wants to complete a mission, be praised, be a leader. Also, when the S hit the fan, became a very scared human being, right? And fled the scene and made it home. But ultimately, Traffic Division did a good job of, many hours later, of discovering that it was me that had become involved in the accident. It was ultimately a misdemeanor traffic collision because it was a parked car. Thank goodness, right? Something else to be thankful for in my life, because it could have been anybody. It could have been a moving car. It could have been a pedestrian. And where would I be now, right? We certainly wouldn't be talking today.
Right.
But ultimately, what ends up happening, and you probably know this, Internal Affairs begins an investigation.
I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, and it takes the sands of time take a little bit of time to go, right? I still had what became a city attorney case, right, with the parked vehicle. I lawyered up through the league. I was first introduction to my attorney, Bill Secchi, who I think you know.
Yeah, shout out to Bill Secchi.
Shout out to Bill Secchi.
The GOAT.
And we made the other party whole through my insurance, because I was an insured person the very next day. But that's where, man, the whole issue of what's going on with my life and alcohol, right? I had this other early incident where nowhere near a moving vehicle, but now this is happening. And the sands of time wait for the adjudication of the criminal matter, which was a city attorney misdemeanor, which turned into a nothing. And I don't mean to say that in a negative way towards the city attorney, but because I made the other party whole through insurance, it became like a little blip on the screen, right? Probably the worst thing that can happen now in retrospect to me, because I needed to be punched in the face a little bit to get a little course correction, which ends up happening a little later. But off of that incident, long story short, is I take a 22-day suspension. Adjudication happens almost an entire year later before September of 2006 now. I had a really good commanding officer at jail division that thought there was no nexus. My off-duty behavior. I admitted I fell on the proverbial sword, right, when I did the internal affairs investigation, that I was driving that night, that I was in a blackout, that I fled, that I was suffering a lot of grief and anxiety over the recent passing of my father a couple of years prior. I'd like to think I was a decent employee right at work. So My commanding officer said 22-day suspension. And I went up the chain of command, and they agreed, right, all the way up, as you know, bureau, and then it goes up to IA, and then it goes to the chief and back down. Such a helpful commanding officer that they wanted to kind of delay, because 22-day suspension is like a whole month off without pay, right? And by the time we got to April of 2007 now, right, almost 18 months later, is when I'm taking my my suspension, my 22-day suspension. It's a month off, and I remember this because I've told the story so many times, that so many things that I've done now to try to help other people and other officers. The very last day, the very last Friday of that suspension month, I'm driving drunk in the city of Glendale. I'm on suspension now, right? I think I said that already for this other hit in 05, and I'm getting pulled over by Glendale PD, a neighboring agency of LAPD in the Northeast area, and I get arrested for drunk driving. So I thought it was hat and books, man. I thought my world was over. I cooperated. I pulled over. Nothing crazy happened, but I knew, man, my goose was cooked, man, for the lack of a better term. And,
Yes.
Handcuffed. They didn't respect me. They knew who I was. I identified myself. And I thought that this is it, man. I mean, how am I going to survive this?
Right.
And but that's. I'm not sure if you want me to keep talking or if you want to ask a question.
Yeah.
You can tell I can talk forever.
Of
brother.
course.
I don't want to.
No, I would definitely
interrupt any
I'll
questions
give you
that
the
you might
floor
have.
to you to tell the story, but since you would like me to interject, which I have no problem doing that.
If you have a question, yeah.
I do. Actually, if I may ask,
Yes.
from 1997, right, up until 2005, so 8 years have
I
gone
think I
by.
know where you're going. That's going to be a great question.
And so what my question to you is that did you ever recognize or realize that perhaps you maybe I am an alcoholic, or maybe I suffer from this symptom, if you will? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a great question, man. And I think I knew where we were going, and I didn't. In retrospect, today, though, I can tell you that from that 97 incident to the 05 incident, was a ticking time bomb. I definitely suffer today from what's termed alcohol use disorder, alcoholism. You know, I have a little education now in the drug and alcohol counseling, or certification, as we call it, in the state of California. I just hadn't gotten in trouble yet over it, right? I was displaying a lot of erratic drinking behavior, where I would drink to excess and the blackout, and then I would drunk drive a lot. So I've told this so many times to crowds of like LAPD, you know, divisions, at training days when I worked a unit that I will talk about here shortly.
Right.
When I told my story in more depth, that I drove hundreds of times in my life drunk, probably in blackouts because I lost memory of. So I know when you lose memory, it means that you're in a blackout across hundreds of miles, you know, of freeway, right? When you think about it, you know, after a night out of drinking. And so I definitely was a ticking time bomb. So the question was, I think, did I recognize it? Absolutely not. But that's part of the symptom of alcoholism, which we can talk about a little later. But I think a lot of people in my life did. I was never a person, even in at the end of my run, as we call it, when we get sober, I never drank alone. I was a guy that drank amongst others, family, friends, partners, acquaintances, women, right? Never been married in my life, so you know it was like the social conduit for me for alcohol.
Got it.
And you know, there's a saying in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I'm a 12-step guy, Alcoholics Anonymous, that talks about when a cucumber becomes a pickle, right? When a cucumber becomes a pickle, right? When he gets pickled enough, that pickle will never become a cucumber again. So I don't know where in my life I got pickled and became an alcoholic. But today I know I was displaying a lot of alcoholic behavior. And you want to hear something crazy? Even prior to that 97 incident, even prior to maybe even getting hired on the department, I was doing a lot of things dangerously when it came to alcohol that could have even prevented me from having the career that I did, right?
Right.
Talk about peeling back the onion. Talk about sharing some stuff that, you know, I'm a human being, brother. I have a lot of ego. I don't want a lot of people to judge me based on, you know, what I just told you, but that's the truth. I think there's a lot of truth to power for people to hear this, because I've learned this for certain, that alcoholism doesn't care what you do for a living. I'm a police officer, right? Then became a sergeant, then wasn't a sergeant, then became a sergeant again. But ultimately, alcoholism doesn't discriminate on what you do for a living. Rich or poor, black or white, Whatever side of the street you're on, whatever you do for a living, it doesn't matter. So I'm here to tell people that are in law enforcement that it's a highly stigmatized thing, right? To come to the conclusion that you might have alcoholism, right?
Yes.
Because everybody, even my dear mother, who's been deceased almost 4 years now, she loved that her baby son was sober, right? That was going to meetings. She met some of my sponsees, met my sponsor, knew that I had gotten sober. But if you ask her, was I an alcoholic? No, he's not an alcoholic, because even for my mom, it had a very ugly connotation what alcoholism meant.
Correct.
And she didn't apply that to me because I had a job still. I hadn't had a bunch of arrests for alcoholism. I hadn't wrecked a bunch of cars. There's no necessity to have all those things happen to you for you to be diagnosed as having alcohol use disorder or being an alcoholic. However, it has to be a self-diagnosis to some extent.
Yeah, there's got to be some
You
accountability.
got to come to terms with it, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I asked is,
Yeah.
would it be fair to say that there's a young Gus right now in LAPD or any other
there is.
agency
Yeah.
where, you know what, to that negative stigma. Talk about a negative stigma. Alcohol has got to be probably worse than just working IA or having an IA, right?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm not an alcoholic. I don't want my partners or anyone to know that, you know what, that I drink whenever I feel like I'm under pressure, I'm under stress. What do you think?
Yeah, I got a flaw, like who wants to be flawed, right? Who wants to open up that amongst their peers, especially in our line of work in law enforcement. For me, it was certainly that. There was people that try to lead me to getting help. To go back in time a little bit, there's a unit in the department, LAPD, in our department. We're such a large organization that we can have a specific unit that does this. It doesn't have to be outsourced or mutual aid type stuff like smaller agencies need to. But the addiction prevention unit, which I think back then was called the chemical dependency unit when I first went there, after that first hit, the department tries to manage risk, right? There's a risk management component to this as well. And because it was an alcohol incident back in '97, they sent me to go meet some people that worked that unit. The office was in the Chinatown area of Los Angeles at the time, and young officer, nobody's gonna tell me, man, that I'm, number one, that I might be an alcoholic, and number two, that I'm not gonna drink anymore, man. That's just not gonna happen for me. Now, I can say that with a little bit of a smile on my face, knowing how beautiful today it is to be a little bit over 18 years sober, right? Because
Congratulations.
it wasn't something, and it's not unique to me. I've heard that story so many times, like you asked. Could there be other members on departments, not just our agency, LAPD, but just any agency that this applies to? Absolutely. And the idea that, can you connect the dots that maybe alcohol is the issue is very foreign, even though it's obvious to a whole lot of other people around you, right? Not to you, the person going through it. Man, today, in '05, I went back to what then is called the alcohol prevention unit.
Okay.
After that '05 incident where I hit the parked car. And even then, man, you think I'd be ready to, even though there were some years there.
Right.
To connect the dots? No. They gave me a little examination that's very renowned, for alcohol use disorder called the MASS test, the Michigan Alcohol Screening Test, 20 questions. I'm a smart guy. I read to the end, and I'm like, man, if I start answering one or two or even three of these in the wrong column, they're going to label me an alcoholic. So, I rationalized my way through answers that were going to label me non-alcoholic.
Right.
Because I wasn't even ready then, Marlon, to not to stop drinking ultimately, right? And that's alcoholic behavior even before I knew it.
Right.
And then 07 happened, and the handcuffs and being placed in the backseat of a car, getting processed, being released on your own recognizance because we respect each other as agencies. And we can do that with civilians, certainly. It's not anything special that's done just for officers. But to your commanding officer, realizing I'm on suspension for this other hit 18 months ago, I'm going to get terminated for this at some point. So going back to that unit, looking that person in the eyes that try to give me with empathy and understanding that, hey, if you might have an issue, we can get you some help. Finally having a little crack in the door of acceptance, as we call it in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, to the idea that maybe alcohol is something that I should try to avoid forever, right? And man, it's tough, right? Law enforcement, it's part of the culture, certainly. We imbibe, we drink for celebratory reasons and for non-celebratory reasons, for tragic incidents and for tragic incidents where we had victory in, right, where we survived it, right? So And it's part of the culture of law enforcement. And I'm not down on law enforcement for that. And I'm not telling anybody that's listening today that I'm an alcoholic because of the culture of alcohol drinking in law enforcement. I'm telling you that I just happen to be a guy that chose the career in law enforcement that was already a pickle at some point in their life.
Good point.
And now here I am, coming to that realization in 2007. And that's where my journey started. There was some stuff that was provided to me based on the wellness aspect of the department of trying to get people to get well if they can. Whether or not you survive and remain a member of the department is one thing, but we're talking about your life now.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Would you be willing to go investigate and go get some help, as we call it, right? And that's where my journey started in sobriety. If you'd like me to keep going, I can.
Yeah, no, what I was going to ask you is, could you, as you got involved in this unit, you have some experience with all these alcohol-related issues, incidents.
Yeah.
Can you let us know what triggers or what trigger points can a young officer experience that perhaps maybe, right, maybe there is some alcoholism in your life?
Yeah, when you begin to use alcohol to cope, right, to take the edge off, for all the harrowing experiences that we go through in law enforcement, right, on a daily basis, things that are unique to the fraternity of law enforcement that a lot of other people don't see. Certainly others do see, right, like people that work in emergency rooms at hospitals, nurses or doctors, or people that are in the military that have seen some stuff like that. But the triggers, the weight that it has on us, not just mentally, but emotionally, right, when we talk about emotions and all that stuff. And then thinking that the idea that a drink, right, because it soothes you, right? It's alcohol is a depressant, right? It's a central nervous system depressant, so it brings emotion down, gets you feeling a little better. That's okay, right? But when you start to use it too much, or when one isn't enough anymore, you start to build a little tolerance for alcohol, right? See, there's my education now that I know.
Yeah.
And when you become tolerant to alcohol, it's like tolerant to any other drug.
Right.
It's not enough anymore to have one. I need two to get back to that level.
Yeah.
And then after tolerance builds in the human body, because that's what it does, I need the third drink now. Now, when you have 3 or 4 drinks in you at home, right, your BAC is scientific fact. You might have tolerance for alcohol, like I can drive right now, but what's your BAC going to read? It's going to read 0.12, 0.18. Nowhere near, you should be nowhere near a moving vehicle, but you feel like you can drive only because you've established tolerance in your body for alcohol.
Yeah.
When I first started drinking, when I shouldn't have, maybe at the age of 15, 16, a half a beer of Coors Light, right? 4% by volume alcohol in 12 ounces would get me buzzed even before I finished it. At the end of my run at 36, when I got booked by, Glendale PD in 2007, and a 6-pack of Coors Light was just the beginning. Let's go drink now.
Just got
because
started.
I had built tolerance for alcohol over all those years of drinking. If you never established that tolerance, though, like my dear mom never did. My dear mom passed at 78, and she had half a glass of wine at the age of 78. Did the same thing to her that it did when she first had it in her life at the age of 18. She couldn't finish it. She got really loopy over it because she never really was a drinker in her life. So, but if you're a drinker, you begin to establish tolerance.
Right.
That's what you need to be careful for. So we have a lot of triggers on the department to answer your question that would lead us to like use alcohol to like get the edge off. You just got to be real careful with it. I'm not here a proponent of don't drink because you're a member of the department. You were adults, you can, it's legal.
Right.
I'm just saying be really, really careful of the warning signs.
I think that's great advice.
Yeah. I don't want to be a hypocrite either because I was the guy that didn't practice any of that stuff.
I agree.
So
I think
I
that...
want to be real. I want
No,
to be real
100%. I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
You're not necessarily telling someone, hey, dude, don't drink at all.
Right, no.
We're just saying, hey, you want to go celebrate, have your drinks, but you know what? Just know that if you start building, correct me if I'm wrong, the tolerance, you're just going to keep...
Yeah. And then you're going to think I can drive like I used to.
Correct.
Right? Again, me not being a hypocrite. I'm just trying to be helpful here now, right? And opening up the
Absolutely.
onion of my story, like being honest. Like, be careful. Be careful with that because we begin to think we're okay to drive because of tolerance, and we're not. Yeah. And I was just talking to this with somebody. Every DUI, and even me, right? We think it's never going to happen to us. You know why, Marlon? For me specifically, I don't want to say what anybody else's story in their life is. People can decide whether or not this has ever happened to them that are listening to this today. But I drove hundreds of times when I shouldn't have been, man.
Yeah.
Whether I was in a blackout or not. I'm talking blackout is like 2.5, 3.0 level. Like, think about the amount of alcohol. But just let's take it back a notch to like 08, 12, where you shouldn't even be driving. Who has done that? And what does that mean? Yeah. And nobody ever thinks this is going to be me now being pulled over.
I'm invincible.
Right. And you can be party two in a traffic accident. You know, means for us, it means you're not the one at fault, right? Because we know what that means. But now it wasn't even your fault, but the agency rolls up, they might smell some alcohol on you, they do a quick test, and guess what? But you're feeling great. So who might have that have happened to? Who could have that happened to? If you start asking yourself those questions, and then for us in law enforcement, I want to end with this because you brought it up earlier about accountability, right? There's an expectation, right? Here's my, Buzz, here's Gus as a supervisor on the department. There's an expectation, right, from the citizenry, right, from the community, that we don't behave in that manner as law enforcement officers. I'm not saying we're superhuman, that it doesn't happen. I'm not saying I'm a hypocrite and don't do as I used to do because I was the guy that didn't do that for a long time. I'm just saying there is an expectation. And today, the beauty of being able to recognize that I'm an alcoholic and I'm sober now, after all the troubles that I put myself through, is that I have an explanation for my actions, not an excuse. Just because I was an alcoholic and went to get help and went to get treatment after that 07 incident and it started my life in sobriety didn't give me the right to wave a yellow flag and say to a board of rights or to a captain or anybody, hey, you can't touch me because I'm an alcoholic. No, guess what? I'm also a member of the department, of a law enforcement agency that there's accountability for your actions, especially 100%. If you're getting arrested for whether it's your own agency or another. Yeah. So my point with that is, like, if we work so hard to get this job, I just told you there was a hiring freeze in the early 90s, 3 different yearly tests. I had to take all those tests over to finally get hired in 94. And here I am putting a career that I worked so hard for on the line for my drinking behaviors. Now, again, today I have an explanation for all those crazy things that I did, drunk driving, putting myself in difficult situations with friends or partners, family, acquaintances, female friends, dating, all that stuff, putting people in danger that didn't deserve to be put in danger. The cool thing about it that lifts a lot of shame and guilt off of me, because I'm a big shame and guilt guy. When it first started, I didn't want to think that maybe I had alcoholism because it was a big weight on me, what it meant about me to the core, to how I was raised, to what my mom and dad would expect of their son, right? Yeah. Is that I have there's an idea that brings me some calm that this is the explanation for it. Not an excuse, but just an explanation for it. And now I have a responsibility to just tie that all up as a sober person to maintain my sobriety, right? Yeah, now I have education behind it. Now if I choose, things get a little harrowing in my life and an idea of a drink becomes a good idea, not a bad idea or a foreign idea, I have a lot of responsibility now that I've diagnosed myself as an alcoholic and know what life in sobriety is and know who I'm keeping out of danger to maintain my sobriety, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And amen to that.
Yeah.
I think you already asked this question I'm about to ask you, but I'm going to ask you anyways. Yeah. What have you learned about yourself throughout this journey?
Man, it's, resiliency is a word tossed around, man, all the time. It's like, it's buzzword. I'm resilient. I'm this and that and the other. I've been told by a lot of people that I've been resilient, that I bounced back. I've been able to judge me. I used to tell people all the time, judge me by my actions after, not prior. My words, I can tell you all the great words that you want to hear, I think. I'm a human being, brother. I tell people this all the time before I forget to say this. I'm just sober, man. I'm still Gus to my core, though. I still want to beat you at any competition that I'm in. I still have the people, the things that I believe in and don't believe in. I just don't drink anymore and become an a-hole about it and want to fight you over it, right? Yeah. You see what I'm saying? But I'm still Gus to my core. So I used to tell people all the time in my career that, are happy that I've reached the end of my journey here in retirement now. But, dude, you're talking to Gus still. You're just talking to a Gus that's not going to, get really crazy when he drinks too much and still, is the way that he is, competitive to the core, right?
Yeah. I saw you out there.
Wants to win things.
I saw you out there in the softball tournament.
Yeah.
I saw you.
Different ones, right? So, but, I think I've been a little resilient. People tell me that a lot. I bounced back. Just to give you a little quick idea, I went to get help at a place called Michael's House in the desert in Palm Springs, where we were sending as an agency a lot of police officers for help with treatment. It's a treatment center, basically. Alcohol use disorder, as it's technically termed now, alcoholism. And it started my journey, 30 days, man, of being away of this idea that I might have alcoholism, right? I met a counselor there. There was a 12-step based program, which means it relied on the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous as the long extended journey, right, of sobriety, because you can't stay in treatment forever, right? 30, 60, 90 days is usually the max. And, but it planted the seed, right, of 12-step sobriety. And it started my journey into rehabilitation, right? Another way of saying kind of resiliency sometimes, of bouncing back, of maybe making the promise of the words of commanding officers that I was saying, man, if I can get through this one, I promise, man, this is what the Gus that you're gonna see now. Yeah. It became action now, not just my words. So that aided my, what I like to call the foundation of my sobriety long term. Right. I got out of Michael's house, came back. I survived that board just because the hearers probably want to know what the hell happened to this guy.
What the hell happened at
that
hearing,
a year later, right, in March of 08, early April of 08, it was a 3-day board of rights. There was no fight in that board, right? I get 18 months prior to my getting arrested, I have this other incident, so that was on record. Now I'm getting book due, so it was just about what have you done to manage risk, right? Why should we even entertain keeping you on the department? How did that happen?
So they thought about firing you.
Absolutely, it was a termination case board. I had to hire Bill Secchi again. God bless that man. So he knows my story really well, and he knows my story now really well, and I've helped him in other things, which is awesome, man. I love it. Maybe we can talk about that before we end. But ultimately, they demoted me, right, back to the rank of police officer 3, because a lot of people may not know this. You're demoted back to the rank that you promote from. Okay. So it wasn't like they could give me a P2 position. Right. They just demote you back to P3.
So that's the way it training works. Officer. You're an FTO again.
I took a 65-day suspension, which is the most by LA City Charter that anybody can get before they get terminated. Correct. And I was placed on what's called a lifetime rehabilitation agreement or a settlement contract to not drink alcohol while you're still employed with LAPD, and you can be tested on or off duty each month up to 5 times. You know, they spread it out. It's sporadic, but it's a testing process to try to manage risk again, right? Risk management, right? So I survived with those 3 caveats, and man, I'm blessed and thankful and grateful, because I thought I was not going to survive it. Everybody, my brother was at my board for all 3 days. They allowed him to sit in. My attorney now, Bill Secchi, shares. I thought there was no way you were going to survive this. My sponsor, which can remain nameless, that's his own story, but he thought, man, after he shared with me, dude, I didn't think you were going to survive it. I just wanted to make sure that you were solid enough in sobriety that even the bad news, you weren't going to think that a drink was a good idea. But here's why I think I survived this, as we're talking about IA. I think for me, in the penalty phase, after they found guilt, right? Guilt,
you were found guilty.
Sustained.
You're at the penalty phase.
Penalty phase now, I had the ability to bring character witnesses in. And man, for me, they came through for me, man. And I say that way because I've heard so many stories now in my career since then that character witnesses do not come through for the folks that they say that they're going to come through for them, because they realize, man, I'm putting my name on the line, and look at all this stuff that I said that person is not just been accused of, but now is sustained because it's character witness time, right? But they all came through for me. Two commanding officers, captains, 2 lieutenants, a couple of sergeant 2s that I worked for. My brother, who was going to be probably a tainted testimony, right? He's my brother. Maybe a little biased. Objective, right? I mean, subjective, not objective testimony. But my point with that, Marlon, is all those things, because people ask all the time, well, how did this guy survive this board? And that's the reason. The board, in my opinion, now I've learned it after the fact, needed something to hang their hat on to manage that risk, right? Because the board members were 2 commanders. I had picked 2 commanders out of that little thing that we used to pick everything.
That's
commanders.
Right, the wooden box.
And the civilian, because it was still back when we were doing
traditional boards.
And that's what ended up happening is because those folks came through to say, certainly not to say that what happened to Gus on an off-duty behavior when it came to alcohol and the troubles that he's gotten into were cool. No, they're very bad, right? Wow, we really got to look at this. Wow, we got to manage risks as a department. But if the board were to see fit that Gus is not terminated as a result of these transgressions, he can come and work for me because I know Gus as an employee. Yes. Man, if they don't have that, I'm done. There's no way that I survive it.
No, 100%.
So, one take that I would say maybe for commanding officers that are asked, for supervisors that are asked. Yeah. If you, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but if you commit, right? I don't want to say promise, but if you commit to somebody that reaches out to you to speak at their board, follow through on it. Yeah. Yeah, do it.
Do it.
Don't, and if you're not going to do it, tell them you're not. Yeah. Like right then, when they're calling you. The phones back, because it was phones. It wasn't the cell phones that we have now, the mini computers that I had to pick up to make these phone calls to these commanding officers when my judgment day was coming, right before Bill was telling me to get my list together, was so heavy, so hard to make that call. When I finally had the bravery to call them and let them know what had happened to me and if they would be willing to come to the penalty phase, they all said yes. And guess what? They actually did it. I've heard so many times where people have gotten these false promises or commitments, and then it doesn't happen for them. And then, unfortunately, in my opinion, right, this is Gus's opinion, the board members don't have anything to hang their hat on when they write the majority and the minority opinion, right? If people don't want to terminate, because this goes up to the chief, and the chief can't overturn, but certainly he can't overturn to the negative. He can overturn like less negative, right?
Correct.
He can reduce.
Correct.
They need to, because they're still commanding officers for the agency that we work for, need to provide a lot of good information of why they are choosing not to terminate, for me, Gustavo, right? And that's what ended up happening for me. So, that's awesome. And then it just started, man. That only fueled my journey into...
To the unit.
Getting back since I was demoted in 2008, I wheeled out to Rampart Division, which was another beautiful thing because later on, I think in 2010 or 2011, the first time ever in our careers, my brother John had made sergeant at Devonshire Division and wheeled to Rampart. And we were able to work together for about 5 years until 2015, when I was reverted back to the rank of sergeant. I can get into that really briefly. I took 3 examinations for sergeant. They happen every 2 years. I passed each exam. I got an interview each time, but guess what they get to do at the end of that interview? They get to wheel out like your package, right?
Of course.
My package was always like wheeled in because I had a lot of negative stuff in there to kind of determine where you should be ranked, right? And when you take the test. And each time I got ranked effectively low enough where I was never going to make the band, right? And,
correct.
It was put in my ear by another CO that I highly respect in my life when I was working Rampart Division, that was wondering how a P3 is working as the adjutant for a commanding officer, because I ended up landing as an adjutant at Rampart. That's another crazy thing that happened to me. My God working for me even before I knew. So I was working in the realm of being able to assist the commanding officer because I had been an adjutant previously in my first stint as sergeant, and Rampart decided to take me in there. This person, a lieutenant, told me about this thing called a reversion that's in our manual. And the reversion says that a year after being demoted from any rank, you can reapply to re-attain that rank. 1 year after. And you can do it till the cows come home. If you've ever watched The Shawshank Redemption, and you can be Andy Dufresne, and you can continue to send those letters to get that library until they get sick of you, and they have to give you the books for the library.
Okay, let's just do it.
I became the guy. Didn't become the guy, but you could do that with the reversion. And I decided, well, you always hear that 5 years is when the department forgives, right, for transgression. So I decided to wait till it was the 2015 now. I got demoted in 2008, right? So 7 years to start the reversion process because I had unsuccessfully done the testing process. And the cool thing about it is that the reversion is a one-page thing. It goes up to the chief of police. There's a yes or no box for my current commanding officer. There's a yes or no box for the bureau commanding officer, and there's a yes or no box for the chief, one-pager. I was able to add like a page and a half of my personal story to the chief. It was Chief Beck at the time, because he was going to be the one that was going to be the ultimate decider. I wasn't going to do this if I didn't know the bureau was going to approve of it, and I had known the bureau deputy chief and commander. I'll leave them nameless because they don't need to be named, obviously. But if people can do the math on times at Central Bureau, they can. But ultimately, I made sure that they knew who I was. I was an adjutant, so I was in the workings of the bureau a lot anyhow because I was doing a lot for the Captain 3 of Rampart Division. My captains were on board with it. I had done a lot of stuff even before I worked the addiction prevention unit on my own when I was assigned to it. At roll calls, as a testimonial, listen to this guy's story. Maybe you might have the issue that's stigmatized that we just talked about, alcoholism. Maybe you want to analyze it. Maybe you want to have a cup of coffee with Gus on your own. You know, he doesn't even work the unit, but you can just meet with the guy.
Yes.
I put myself out there to do that. I was a decent adjutant, I think, right? I maintained that adjutant status, and I was able to write the chief of police about a 1.5-page dissertation, because he only gets the blank one page, right?
Right.
About why, you know, who I am, because he's going to also have my team's report that's going to show, wow, look at this is the Sentry Man. This is the guy that we've been calling the Sentry Man.
That's the Sentry Man.
Look at all the stuff that he did bad overall his career. And the cool thing is I was able to tell him that story, right? That I just kind of told the viewers about my fall from grace, and then my recuperation or my rehabilitation from that fall, the things that I had done on a personal level, the things that I had begun to do to help others on the department, the role that I maintained as a supervisor, even though I was a P3 because I was an adjutant, right? The inner workings of, you know, uses of force, of complaints of other officers for different reasons that I interjected my opinion on that was respected by commanding officers that went through Rampart Division. I had a bunch of commanding officers that I reached out to. This is so cool, man, that I told them what I was going to do because I had tried the test, and now the reversion was an idea that was planted in my head many years prior. I was going to try that. Would you be willing to be somebody that the chief would reach out to, you know, for an opinion on? And they all said yes, man, every single one. So I had a list of people. And it went up the chain, and in November 30th of 2015, I'll never forget that date, I was reverted to the rank of sergeant.
Congratulations.
After 8-year hiatus, after almost being in the rank for 5 years. It's I have that. I don't recommend the up and down story if you can avoid it, but know that they can be survived, number one.
Yeah.
And then number two is what it allowed me to do at that point is become a supervisor, because when you work the addiction prevention unit, they want a supervisor role because you have a lot of sensitive conversations behind the subject matter
absolutely.
of a disease of alcoholism or substance use disorder when it becomes prescription medications, which a lot of us sometimes can be problematic, right? Very strong pain medications. I was able to get into the addiction prevention unit in January of 2016, shortly after my reversion. Leave the castle, Rampart. It was really tough, man, because I had created so many bonds and relationships there. My brother was still working Rampart. He retired out of Rampart. But it was the next step in my journey of bounce back, of resiliency. It was me paying it forward now, right? It was my turn to take that role. I didn't want to do it for many years. There were some people that worked at unit when I was a P3 that thought, maybe we can sneak you in here as a P3 because you're such a good story. The things that you've been through, the stuff that you survived, and I never wanted to do it. I thought I owed Rampart a lot because they accepted me there after I got demoted, and I didn't want to leave them after a year or two because, you know, I thought I deserved, you know, they deserved to get more out of me. And then, you know, it was God's plan that I get reverted back to the rank of sergeant. It made it easier for me to like morph into that unit that required a supervisory role. And I was in that unit for almost 7 years, man, being the guy, Marlon, being the guy that I didn't want to go visit when I was going through my troubles. I became that dude, man.
And you know what?
I was on the other side of that, you know.
100%. And I don't say this much with a lot of my guests, but some do deserve. Well, I shouldn't say deserve, but it just, you know, the light bulb hits where I do say that I'm a big believer in God. Faith is number one, right? However, listening to your story, maybe fate had you go through this journey just to get to that unit. I really believe. In other words, people go through the storm, right? And they survive it, but only to get to a place right, or a function that you probably never would ever thought that you get to. And the reason why I say that is because one of my mentors will always tell me this, said, Marlon, you know what? When I was a young sergeant, he would always say, listen, God does his best work through people. He uses people as instruments.
Conduit.
You know, and, you know, to send that message, good or bad. Both, right? And he always told me, whatever you do in this career, in this department, don't ever make it about politics and don't make it about egos. Put that aside. It's never about you. And I truly believe that even what happened in 1997, knowing that, you had these trigger points, you probably didn't even know. Right. And then here you are, you know, 20-something years later, and now you're using yourself to get to others, because there's a lot of young officers who don't know this. What do you think?
It started the journey, right, for me. All those things. The conduit, the connection with the higher power, big. I love that you said, because I say it a lot now, that maybe there's a reason that all these things happen to you, right? Like trial, like the steel has to be, go through fire, right, to be made tough.
Absolutely.
I'm certainly not trying to say that I'm steel, but ultimately, I remember doing a testimonial even before I started working the addiction prevention unit, to a group, a roll call of like a division. It was like divisional training. There was a bunch of people there. And when I got into my story, I get emotional. I have my mom's emotion that runs through my veins.
Yes.
And there were some points where I really, and I still kind of am because of the guilt and shame that kind of still permeates in me behind all of this thing, right? It's an explanation, not an excuse. I'm not saying excuses for my actions. I'm really big on accountability. But somebody told me, dude, you're being really hard on yourself. I love that you did this. Doesn't apply to me. I don't really drink much. I'm glad you're well and doing this now. But man, you're really tough on yourself when you start talking about you don't know how you survived this or why you survived this. Stop doing that, because the reason you survived it, this is what he told me, is because you're doing this now.
Yeah.
Man, when he told me that, I'm gonna get emotional. I'm gonna get emotional.
Yeah.
In retrospect, he was right. I got a lot of strength out of it. This person wasn't somebody that I knew or was personally acquainted with. Certainly after the fact, but not before that was told to me. But, the awesome thing is that person took the time to come meet me after, right? On the side, after this training day, on a break, everybody's going to the bathroom, getting their coffee. Searched me out to tell me, love that you're well, love your story. I appreciate the fact that you've, survived this. Quit being so tough on yourself, because the reason you are survived it is because you're doing this and you're going to help people.
Yes. Which is my next question. So just give us, just out of curiosity, kind of give us some numbers. You were in the unit for 7 years.
Yes.
How many? How many cops actually have recovered or gone to programs?
Yeah. I would say, again, an anonymous program to maintain people's confidentiality, privacy. No names need to be said, but a ballpark figure, I'd say for sure over 100, maybe 150 officers in our agency for certain, I know that are sober right now. There's different ways to do it also. I'm a 12-step guy, AA guy. People lean into faith, people lean into other things. I'm a true believer in 12-step because there's a huge process that's involved that helps you get into a point that you're happy that you're sober. I love to say that. People can white knuckle and be tough about it because I'm gonna lose this, that, and the other, the wife, the kids, the job, but just not really happy about not drinking, but they can do it. Today, man, I'm happy I don't drink, man. It's the best thing that ever happened to me, even though it required the worst moment in my life, getting a handcuff placed in the backseat of a very claustrophobic Glendale PD car to get there. Now, the worst moment in my life, right, as far as feeling, other than my dear parents both passing, right, and the experiences of that emotion, was that moment because of all the loss and the shame and the guilt that I was feeling. And my brother, what is he going to say? He's a member of this department, and he's one of the guys that would try to tell me, dude, what's wrong with you, man? You can try to get help and other people. Ultimately, it's, man, the plight, the journey has allowed me to experience, my point with this, because you asked the question about how many, so many private, confidential recoveries of people, right?
That's awesome.
The connection that you get. It's one thing to have an officer come in, and I'm a doctor, and I never experienced alcoholism, meaning a psychologist, and is trying to tell you that, this is what you're experiencing. And it's another thing coming to meet Gus, and then saying, hey, let me tell you what happened to me, like really briefly, the 05 and 07.
Yeah.
And now you can feel the armor come off of officers they came off of me eventually. For me, the armor came off after I had to get hit over the head a couple of times with an anvil. Handcuffs around my wrist reduced that armor, right?
Right.
But if I can do it by empathy, understanding, non-judgment, I didn't go to school to learn about what you might be going through. Listen to what I lived to go through what you might be going through. Yeah. And even that, though, Marlon, here's the unfortunate tragedy about it, is that even that doesn't always get through to some folks, right? And you gotta be okay with that, as not just as a sober person, but also somebody that was working that unit. That, we can only be the messenger. We can only be the conduit. We can only plant the seed that maybe there is a better thing or better way, right? Without alcohol, and there's some help to help you. Like if you have an issue, if you have trouble not drinking, that in itself should probably give you a big clue.
Yeah, absolutely.
But man, a lot of people don't. You don't draw that. Yeah, you don't draw that conclusion that easily. So today, Yeah, I know for sure there's a couple of hundred on the department with us. There's a fraternity of law enforcement through mutual aid, Peace Officers Fellowship that I know includes fire and police or first responders in general, that has made that even into the thousands probably for sure.
That's awesome.
That's a nationwide network, right? And you know, my point with that is we're not alone, man. And we
No.
think we are. We think we're the only one. Like I beat myself over the head. What's wrong with me when I finally got at the end of my run in 07? And then the cool thing is the ease and the fascination of learning, again, that I do have alcoholism and this is what I can do to help myself. And here's an explanation for my actions. I said this a couple times already because I mean it. Not an excuse. I don't want anybody to think that's listening to this like, man, this guy got away with murder. He doesn't learn to let. No, the accountability was real,
Yes.
was appropriate. Had I been terminated, it'd have been appropriate.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you my journey. I'm just telling you what happened to me.
Yeah.
There was never a former deputy chief Marroquin on the department that was able to call in a favor to that board of rights, man. There wasn't. And I say that many times in other things when I did my testimonial, because people would wonder, you know, I'd hear the gasps.
Well, you know,
when I would
what
share that.
What I would say is it has a lot to do with your reputation and it has a lot to do with your character. And I really appreciate you sharing such a very in-depth topic about alcoholism, where I really truly feel that there's just so many law enforcement officers out there that don't know the trigger points, that are young. There's a young Gus, there's a young Marlon out there that they're made of steel. You know what? I'm just going to hop in that car and go. And I appreciate you know, you sharing that with me. Look, let's talk about this worst incident in your career.
Okay, we had me think about it a little bit, and I didn't want a time voyage in the back. I worked gangs for almost 7 years, so I saw a lot of damage that you know, rifle bullets can do to rival gang members and family members screaming and yelling, mothers and fathers coming out to neighborhoods over kids that you were trying to like keep out of the. I've done all that. I want to keep it more current and more in line with what I just told everybody today. Yeah. And working the addiction prevention unit, I told you about the tough situations, right? The tough officers that have come through the office. And here's the deal. Just like it is in the room of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I don't want to make this about Alcoholics Anonymous, we talk about this is a life or death issue. On the department, it is as well, because we're not immune to alcoholism. My point with that is that I know the most recent one was a young man. Again, I want to be really, really, really careful with confidentiality and privacy because they deserve it even in death. That didn't see his 30s because of alcohol consumption, abuse, use, several attempts at trying to get well and better. Very empathetic, loving, understanding conversations between that officer and I, and even their family, right, that I became acquainted with, their significant other. And now they're no longer above ground, man. That's heavy. And here, that's only one, Marlon, of, for sure, I lose count on two hands.
Yes.
Over the time that I worked at unit that are no longer above ground. Certainly maybe even more older, right? Because the alcohol does a lot of damage physically to different parts of the body, not just the liver. That leads to an earlier death than you need to have, right? So for me, that one for sure sticks out because I still get really, like, what could I have done a little better or different? And then I got to rely on guys like my sponsor or like people in the program of AA or other officers in the Police Officers Fellowship is saying, Gus, when you think about it, it's an individual choice, right? That person made. They were so unfortunately wrapped up in their alcoholism where they ended up dying from it, right? So a tragedy of that because they're no longer above ground, man. That's heavy. And that's something I always will always be in my memory. So,
As much as I hate asking that question, I'm going to contradict myself and say that I do like to ask that question because that is true police work. You get yourself in this profession, you're going to run into situations where it is a matter of life and death. It's not always walking the old lady across the street or all the community policing.
Rescuing the cat in the tree. And all that.
And rest in peace. All right, man. Let's finish off with something good. Talk to me. What's your handicap?
Golf
golfing
handicap?
dude, man. Come on.
Well, I have an app that tells me I'm about an 18 handicap, which is
the app pretty accurate?
Not bad. Yeah, it is because you drop your scores in every time that you play, and I've hundreds of rounds in there, and it reads golf course difficulties and easier ones and all that. So that's not bad considering that many years ago, if I broke 120 on a golf course, I was happy. You know, par is 72, so think about that. That's a lot of extra shots. Okay. So my game has gotten better, but golf is an interesting game because you know, one day you're at your handicap, and the next day you're not at your handicap, and then one day you have your personal best, as we call them, right? And then how the hell did that happen if I never hit my personal best again? But that's the game of golf, and that's okay.
And talk to me. You still playing softball?
No, you know, it's funny. This was my retirement year. The team was around since 2000 that my brother and I ran. It was a co-ed softball team that was in the, you know, police and fire games.
Yeah.
And we had many victories, and even in the defeats, we had a lot of camaraderie and good, times. But I played in San Diego a couple of months ago. So the knees kind of just stopped barking because I never learned, you know, Father Time is undefeated, right? When you get older, you get older, brother.
That's right.
And unfortunately, I don't mean this to be in an egotistical way, but I never could play softball on any other than 110%, man. And my knees are like, dude, you can't give 110%.
Yeah, they're like
anymore.
at 60,
you know, you can jog the first every once in a while. So this was my retirement year, so I'm not going to play softball anymore. I want to, you know, do other things, you know. I exercise, obviously. A run is my thing, not lifting weights, and golf. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Gustavo.
Yes.
Mucho gusto. Thank you so much for coming down and sharing, bro.
You're welcome, brother.
Like
yeah.
always.
Thank you, man.
Let's
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you know, like always, it never surprises me with the stories that I really feel that we can all learn from. So, big shout out to your journey, man.
Thank you, brother.
We're gonna end it. You know what I always say. Please be safe out there, and don't forget to go Code 6. Thank you.